Welcome to Rhode Island's ABLE, a financial tool for people with disabilities, on-demand webinar presented by the Paul V. Sherlock Center on Disabilities at Rhode Island College. This introductory session will provide an overview of ABLE accounts and answer questions about impact on benefits, program specifics, and how to open an account. Additionally, we will share information about how to access work incentives, information, and benefits counseling services. You may access a PDF copy of this presentation from the Sherlock Center's website, Work Incentive Benefits Counseling webpage. My name is Vicki Ferrara, and I am the Coordinator of Access to Integrated Employment for the Sherlock Center. And I am joined today by Chris Civitolo, Director of the 529 Savings Program from the Rhode Island Office of the General Treasurer. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, Vicki. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, Chris, could you tell me what is ABLE?
Sure. So ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And, you mentioned that I'm a director of our 529 Savings Program. And, for those of you who might be familiar with 529 programs, they give families an opportunity to save for future education costs in a tax-advantaged and flexible way. Prior to 2014, though, there actually wasn't any specific way for individuals and their families with disabilities to actually do the same thing. So the ABLE Act was actually passed in 2014, and in effect, it allows individuals and their families to save in a tax-advantaged and flexible way. And most importantly, it helps them to avoid spending down earnings or savings to meet resource limits that you normally associate with programs like SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, SNAP, and other federal assistance programs. So really, when you think about ABLE, we are part of the Treasurer's Office in the state of Rhode Island. We're part of a multi-state consortium that banded together to offer a low-cost, accessible, and affordable program to meet the needs of people with individuals. We started the program back in 2016 and have experienced very good success and growth over the last few years. So we're really excited about the future with that. But at a very high level, that's what ABLE allows individuals with disabilities to do. It's essentially a tool for independence, and it allows them, just like everyone else, to save in a flexible and tax-advantaged way.
So could you tell me more about who is eligible for an ABLE account?
Yes, so a couple of things to keep in mind. So the first thing that we'd start with is disability, whether it is a physical or mental disability, does have to have an age of onset before age 26. So if a disability had an age of onset before age 26, and you're currently eligible for either SSI or SSDI, you're automatically eligible for an ABLE account. Now, not everybody is collecting SSI or SSDI, so there are actually a couple of other ways that you can be eligible. So again, assuming that the disability had an onset before age 26 and you're not collecting SSI or SSDI, if your disability, whether it's a physical or mental disability, has lasted or is expected to last for 1 year or more, or can cause death, you're automatically going to be eligible for an ABLE account. For any individuals who are blind and had an onset of blindness prior to age 26, they are also eligible. And then the final way, if you have a condition that is listed on the Social Security Administration's list of compassionate allowance conditions, and that condition was present before age 26, you would be eligible for an ABLE account.
So it seems like the definition of disability is pretty broad, and so many people can qualify for an ABLE account. Chris, I'm wondering, you mentioned the age of the disability onset of being age 26. Is there any effort to expand that age limit?
That's a great question, and there is, fortunately. So, as you can imagine, it obviously is a little bit limiting to have that age of onset at 26. So there's actually been a bipartisan effort in Congress for about the last 18 months or so to expand that age of onset to 46. And that would actually, from just a numbers perspective, that would nearly double the eligible population in the US that could take advantage of ABLE accounts. From Rhode Island's perspective, all of our representatives and obviously our office are hugely in favor of this expansion. We're really hopeful that it kind of gets pushed across the finish line. We're not there yet. But it would be really an amazing thing to open this up to more people. One quick thing that I just wanted to point out, because we do get this question a lot, just because the age of onset has to currently be before age 26, it doesn't mean that if you're 50 or 65 years old, that you can't open an ABLE account. As long as your disability did have that age of onset prior to 26, your current age does not matter. So just wanted to clarify that.
That is an important piece of information. So that was interesting, Chris. Could you tell us more about what is a qualified disability expense?
Yes. So, within the context of ABLE accounts, obviously the main goal is to allow you to save for qualified disability expenses. And really, it's a very broad definition. So let's just kind of start with the framework of it. So, qualified disability expense, it's really any expense that you incur as a result of living with a disability. And it's just intended, so qualified disability expense is intended to improve your quality of life and ensure that you can meet the basic needs that you have while living with a disability. So I've broken out a few different categories of qualified expenses, but I just want to emphasize the fact that while this list is quite broad, this is not an all-inclusive list of qualified expenses. There are other expenses on this, or that one might be able to pay for that aren't on this list. But some of your main categories that we typically see people save for are things like education, any employment training and support that they might need. Assistive technology is a huge category. Personal support services, really anything related to health and wellness. So, it can be as simple as physical therapy, supplements, medications. Another one that people sometimes don't realize that they can actually pay for with an ABLE account are things like legal fees. So we do actually have some account owners who also want to take advantage of, special needs trust, for instance. And of course that is going to ensure that you incur some legal fees to get that set up. So the nice thing about having your ABLE account is that you can actually use your savings there to help pay for some of those legal fees. Housing also counts, though I do want to just caution, there are some exceptions that apply to housing. So I would encourage anyone to take a look at the Social Security Administration's guidelines on paying for housing expenses with ABLE funds. Transportation, whether it is public transit, car, rideshare, any of that, as long as you need it to meet your basic needs, that counts as well. And then, we do obviously hear from a lot of families who are concerned with what happens in the event that, their family member who holds an ABLE account passes away. The funds in an ABLE account can also be used for funeral and burial expenses.
So really, pretty much any expense that supports my quality of life can be paid for through an ABLE account.
That's correct. Yep. It can be as simple as just your basic day-to-day needs in terms of, groceries, medications, things like that, all the way to the, most sophisticated, piece of assistive equipment or technology that someone might need. So it's really, quite a broad definition. I would encourage everybody, if they have any sort of specific questions on whether an item or a category is included, to take a look at the Social Security Administration's guidance. But I think you'll find that there really are it's a minimal amount of items or categories that aren't actually going to be eligible for qualified expenses.
Right, so it's really worth, if you have additional resources, to be able to use an ABLE account for those savings to put towards those expenses.
Well, that's exactly right. And we never want to say that, enable accounts for folks who are on SSI or SSDI. That's a very, very important component. Really what ABLE accounts do is they help to supplement that and just give you more independence and flexibility.
Great. So now tell me more about how much and who can contribute to an ABLE account.
Mm-hmm. So again, really, flexibility, I'm going to kind of really hone in on that term, but it really applies in a lot of facets to ABLE accounts. So we'll kind of start with, what's the limit? So you can contribute up to $15,000 per calendar year to an ABLE account. You can actually contribute more if you're working. So currently the Able to Work Act allows folks who aren't covered by a retirement plan through their employer to contribute up to an additional right around $12,500 or up to the amount that they're earning if it's less than that. And that $12,500 limit is essentially just the federal poverty limit. So the rule is really you can contribute if you're working up to the lesser of your gross earnings or that federal poverty limit. Anyone can contribute. So, you as the account owner and beneficiary of that ABLE account, you're not alone. So we don't want folks to think that, they bear the sole burden of saving and contribute. Your friends can contribute, family members can contribute. We make it really easy through our gifting feature called eGift to allow you to actually invite friends, family, or anyone else to contribute to your ABLE account, whether that's for a birthday, holiday, another type of special occasion, or if they just want to anytime make a contribution to your account. The really important thing though is that regardless of who contributes to the account, you as the account owner and beneficiary maintain control over the account. So let's use the example of a friend contributing $500 to that account. That money is there for you to use towards your qualified disability expenses. That money is controlled entirely by you, not the person who makes the contribution.
Well, those are some fairly flexible ways to add resources to an ABLE account.
Exactly.
And the gifting feature sounds very interesting and useful. I think about when my daughter was young, we had family members contributing to savings bonds. But I could see in this instance, instead of doing savings bonds, we're contributing to an ABLE account, and that's a tax deferred or tax-free option for those contributions.
That's exactly right.
Great.
It's really nice for friends and families in lieu of traditional gifts that they might give to make a more meaningful contribution. Obviously, something that's going to have a direct positive impact on their friend or family member.
So also related to that, what are some methods used to contribute to ABLE accounts?
Yep, great question. So several. We have many individuals who are just comfortable, with traditionally just writing a check. So we always accept checks into the plan, can do that. And again, anyone can write a check for the benefit of an account owner or beneficiary. Obviously, the other popular option is ACH, so essentially using a checking or a savings account to draw funds from, just like you're used to for maybe your car insurance or your cell phone bill.
Yeah.
And that contribution gets directly routed to an ABLE account. If you want to automate it and just kind of set your savings on autopilot, you can set up recurring contributions. So $25 a month would just be the minimum amount required, but you can set that up $25 or more to go monthly. If you wanted to do more than that, you're certainly able to. And then the gifting feature, just to touch on that quickly, there's actually two methods that folks can use. So they can actually either send in a check or they can actually route funds to your account via their own checking or savings account electronically. So, again, really very, very flexible in terms of how we allow contributions.
Lots of good features. So could you share more about how my benefits or a person with disabilities benefits could be impacted through an ABLE account?
Yes. So just want to, sort of emphasize here that obviously, this topic is certainly very, very important to people who are considering an ABLE account. And it's not meant to be exhaustive in terms of, all of the considerations, but we're going to really try to give you a very high level look, at what this would entail. And really the thing that I just want you to keep in mind is, when you traditionally think about resource limits and your benefits, generally you kind of have that figure in mind of $2,000, right? If you're a single individual, you're used to not being able to have more than $2,000 available to you in order to preserve your benefits. What ABLE does is it actually allows you to have a balance in your ABLE account and save up to $100,000 without having any effect on your SSI or other benefit resource limits. So really the rule of thumb is balances of $100,000 or less in an ABLE account are excluded from SSI resource limits. So that means that only the amount over $100,000 would actually be counted against your limit, along with obviously any other assets that you might have in a non-ABLE account, like a regular checking or savings account. So what would happen if your ABLE account balance went over $100,000? The simplest explanation is that your SSI benefits would be suspended until you got below that limit. But importantly, your Medicaid eligibility would continue regardless of your account balance. So any account balance in an ABLE plan does not count towards Medicaid eligibility. So you can save even above $100,000 and still retain your Medicaid eligibility. The only impact that you would have for any of those balances over that amount would again be related to SSI. So as you can imagine, this is a huge, huge win for people who really are used to kind of remaining, we use the term a lot, asset poor, right? Where you just have to continually spend down any of your savings or earnings. You can't accumulate savings. You can't plan, for the future. Let's say you want to buy a house or you have an upcoming expense or you're just thinking about saving for retirement, for instance. Normally you're not able to do those things if you're on SSI because you have those really strict limits. ABLE accounts really take away that barrier and allow you just an incredible amount of flexibility and independence in terms of being able to save.
Those are some really good asset limits to be able to, save up to $100,000 and not have your Medicaid being affected. So there really are some very good features.
Yeah, and when you think about it too, obviously most of our account owners, are not approaching that balance. And just by the very nature of, how you're saving and spending for qualified expenses, you generally have recurring expenses because, because the expenses, the categories are so broad, most people are using their accounts certainly on a monthly basis, if not sometimes, daily or of course weekly. So, it's a nice problem to have if you're approaching that $100,000 limit. It's important for folks to know that, and if they are someone who has accumulated savings above the amount, that Medicaid wouldn't be impacted.
Great. So could you expand on what are the tax advantages of having an ABLE account?
Sure. So we talked about, a little bit earlier that, the main or the genesis of ABLE was let's give individuals and their families with disabilities an opportunity to save in a tax-deferred way. And then when it comes time for them to use those savings for their qualified expenses, let's ensure that they can take those withdrawals tax-free and don't have to actually pay tax on any earnings. So really the two things that you want to keep in mind are anything that gets contributed and any earnings on those contributions are going to grow tax deferred. So you are not, on a yearly basis, like you would be potentially in some other accounts, you are not paying tax on that. And then when you use those funds, as long as it's for a qualified expense, you're not paying any tax on your earnings when you take that distribution. So really you get a double tax benefit of tax deferred growth and then tax-free withdrawals. There's also a benefit in terms of, if you're someone who maybe has a 529 account for another family member, and that family member has a sibling who has a disability and could benefit from an ABLE account, you can actually transfer up to the $15,000 annual limit from that family member's 529 account to an ABLE account owned by the other member of the family, and that would be a tax-free transfer. So there's some built-in flexibility and tax advantages with that as well. And then we talked a little bit before about anyone being able to make contributions, not just the account owner. For anyone that makes a contribution, they can keep in mind too that that contribution in and of itself up to the $15,000 limit has gift tax advantages. So you can, if you're someone who's concerned about your taxable estate, you can start to draw that down by contributing to an ABLE account.
So again, there are many benefits and features to accumulating savings through an ABLE account. So could you tell us about what is needed to open a Rhode Island ABLE account?
Sure. So, I talked earlier that our consortium that we partner with in terms of managing our program, we really just tried to make our plan as accessible as possible for Rhode Islanders. So really, there are two easy ways to enroll. The easiest way is to enroll online, and we'll give everyone the web address later in the presentation, and they'll have that available. 6 steps to do it, takes about 15 minutes. The other way, if you're more comfortable, you can complete an enrollment form, which you can download and print from our website, or you can contact our customer service representatives, and they'd be happy to mail out an enrollment kit to you. In terms of just kind of the logistics with opening the account, you can open an account for yourself or an authorized individual who has, for instance, power of attorney or guardianship can open one on your behalf if you don't have capacity to make financial decisions. The minimum to open, so it's low minimum, it's $25. So that's your initial contribution. So you get started with $25 or more. And then any subsequent contributions that you make just have to, again, be $25 or more. investment options. So we have 6 target risk portfolios. So you'll see the graphic there on the left side of your screen. If you're someone who actually does want to invest and possibly achieve greater earnings, you can select one of these target risk portfolios. So they range from a conservative option all the way to an aggressive option. And each portfolio is made up of an underlying mix of stocks and bonds. We also have for people who don't want to invest and just want to use a kind of traditional checking account that's FDIC insured, we partner with a Fifth Third Bank to offer a checking account option. Works just like a checking account that you're used to from a Citizens or a Bank of America. You get a debit card that you can use to pay for your expenses. If you're someone who also likes to write checks, you can also request a checkbook as well.
So this sounds like there are a variety of ways that you can invest. I'm wondering, can you choose multiple investment options or only one?
Yep, great question. So you are not limited to just one investment option. So while our checking account option is the most popular for Rhode Island account owners, about 40% of our account owners use the checking account option. You can select a mix. So for instance, let's say I wanted to go with 50% of my contributions being allocated to that checking account option. I could then say that the remaining 50% could go into the growth portfolio that you see there. Or I could split it up even further. I could do 50% into the checking account. I could do 25% into the growth portfolio and another 25% into an aggressive portfolio. So you can really mix and match. Really the rule of thumb is just that you have to have a minimum of obviously 1% of your total allocation in any one individual option. But as long as everything totals up to 100%, you're free to mix and match. So definitely not limited. And then the other important thing that I'll just quickly point out, let's say that you change your mind and you want to make a shift in terms of your investments. You are allowed to change your investments up to twice per calendar year. So you're not locked in if you change your decision or you change your mind or you just decide that maybe your risk tolerance or objectives have changed.
So there's lots of flexibility in terms of how to invest into an ABLE account. And I've heard you say it's easy to open an account. I can start an account with very little resource of $25, and I can choose investment options or a checking account or some combination of all of them to manage my saved resources.
Exactly right. Really it's what are you as an account owner and an individual who's saving for your disability expenses? What are your goals? What are your objectives? Are you someone, I used the example earlier, are you really more saving for just kind of day-to-day expenses, or are you thinking about maybe in a few years, purchasing a home, or, are you getting married and saving for that? Are you currently working and, you want to put some money away for retirement? So, we try to offer low-cost investment options that provide an appropriate mix of underlying, stocks and bonds that really can meet anyone's goal, regardless of whether you're saving just for day-to-day expenses or you're thinking longer term and trying to accumulate savings.
And by including investment options, this really supports the goal of trying to increase assets of people with disabilities,
Exactly.
and not. So that's really encouraging.
Exactly. Yep. Like we talked about earlier, the entire idea is really there's no reason why you can't accumulate savings and assets.
Great. So along with opening an account, are there any fees associated with having an ABLE account?
Yep. So there are a couple. So I'll just run through them. we do have, in terms of obviously administering our program, we do have an account maintenance fee. So it's $15 per quarter, but that quarterly fee is actually reduced to $10 per quarter if the account owner or authorized individual is a Rhode Island resident and they select electronic delivery for statements, which both things, apply to the vast majority of our account owners. Most of our account owners are obviously Rhode Island residents. The plan is open to out-of-state residents, but the majority of our account owners live in Rhode Island. And most of our account owners prefer electronic delivery so that they can save on paper and access their statements in a more convenient way. The second fee really applies if you're someone who is actually using that checking account option that I mentioned. So normally we have a $2 monthly checking account fee just to maintain that. That fee's waived though if you select electronic delivery for your statement or if you just simply keep a daily balance of $250 or more in that checking account option. So realistically for most people, they are selecting e-delivery. So that fee, tends to be a moot point.
Well, and because there are fees, to have an account with just $25, and if you're not planning to contribute additional resources in the near future, the timing of opening an account has to be considered, because you don't want to be having a base of balance and then having that chipped away by the fees.
That's exactly right. And, we want people to understand that. And, while we say obviously that $25, is our minimum, you're right. Practically speaking, it does make more sense to, if you can start with, perhaps a little bit higher of an initial contribution, but, maybe that's just $100 or $250. And, like we talked about earlier, you don't have to do that alone. So, there's no reason why a friend or a family member can't help you out, with that initial contribution if they're able to. So absolutely right. You do want to be conscious of the fees. Unfortunately, we do need to charge a few fees, obviously, to run the program and just keep administration where it needs to be and offer really is hopefully as robust and accessible program as possible. So it is something that you want to keep in mind when you're thinking about planning out what your initial contribution may be.
So along with opening an ABLE account, a traditional bank or an investment company would often have fees associated with them, and these fees seem to be in the reasonable ballpark equal to other types of financial institutions.
We think so, yeah. We really obviously our goal, our main goal was to provide as low a cost an option for folks, and we think that we accomplished that. And we really try to, as much as possible, ensure that any fees that we charge are equitable and competitive, because we understand that fees obviously directly eat away at your savings, and the main goal here is to allow you to save as much as possible and gain independence.
So how could I learn more about an ABLE account if I have interest in opening one?
Yep. So a couple of really convenient ways. So I mentioned our website earlier. So it's ri.savewithable.com. You can see the link there. You can take a look. We have some frequently asked questions. We have more information about the investment options if you wanted to learn about a specific portfolio or portfolios. You can also request an information kit, as I mentioned. And then most importantly, we hope that you will enroll online. So very easy to do it, 6 steps, and takes about 15 minutes. You can also talk to our program representatives. So we actually have an office in Warwick, Rhode Island, so local. You'll be speaking to someone locally, and they're available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The toll-free number is listed there. You can also email us, and you'll get in touch with someone locally. at the email address that you see listed there. And our representatives are always happy to answer any questions. It can be as simple as, walking you through the enrollment process, or, as complex as talking through your, kind of individual situation and ensuring that, you are eligible for an account, or talking through any issues with, resources or things of that nature.
So really there are three ways to connect through the website, through the call center, by either a phone number or through an email correspondence. Excellent. So that's a great review of ABLE accounts, and also how to open one here in Rhode Island. Having access to an ABLE account allows people with disabilities to enter the workforce, really knowing they have a resource to save money and minimize the impact on their benefits. For SSI and SSDI beneficiaries, learning about available work incentives is important. Again, one of the goals of ABLE is to help people save money, and by working, that gives you the option potentially to have some savings. At the Sherlock Center, we offer a variety of resources, including fact sheets, work incentive information, public information sessions, and access to benefits counseling. What people need to know is that benefits counseling will inform people about the impact of work earnings on their SSI and SSDI. They'll also provide information about what's the impact on their health insurance, Medicaid and or Medicare. We'll also review the work incentives related to the SSI and SSDI programs. Additionally, benefits counselors will help people be informed about what are their wage reporting options, and also get them to consider how to prepare for or avoid overpayments that often come with when you're working, because the Social Security Administration is about 2 to 3 months behind in reporting or affecting your benefits based on your earnings. So benefits counseling can really help a person think about their big picture, plan for the future, and develop a work incentive plan that for some includes how to use earnings to replace cash benefits, and by also retaining health insurance. So it's a really great resource that is available to people receiving SSI and SSDI. So how do you access benefits counseling? We encourage people to call the Social Security Administration's Ticket to Work helpline. You can reach that helpline by calling 1-866-968-7842, or you can access the TTY TDD number at 1-866-833-2967. Again, by contacting the Ticket to Work helpline, you can get basic work incentive questions answered, and they will refer you to your local work incentive planning and assistance project in our state. And in Rhode Island, currently, that program is at the Sherlock Center on Disabilities. So as we move to conclude today's session, a few highlights. ABLE accounts is a convenient way and flexible way to save for disability expenses. To open an ABLE account, you can save above SSI and Medicaid resource limits. Work incentives information and benefits counseling is available here in Rhode Island through the Sherlock Center. And we encourage people to stay informed about work incentives by joining the Sherlock Center's mailing list. And that website information is listed on our resource page. We also want to remind people that when you open an ABLE account, it's important for you to inform the Social Security Administration that you have an ABLE account. You should also know that the Social Security Administration does receive reports, and so they will be informed at some point that you do have an ABLE account. But we encourage people to be proactive and encourage your entitlement programs to be aware that you have an ABLE account. Additionally, if you are a person who is working, it's important that you report your earnings to all programs, entitlement programs that you might be receiving, so that you are keeping them aware, and they can be adjusting your benefits based on your work earnings. Overpayments and other issues are avoided or minimized by keeping those organizations informed of your status, of any changes in earnings. So a few resources we want to make sure people are aware of. Rhode Island is ABLE overview video is available. We also are offering as a resource how to open an ABLE account online. The link will be included in the PowerPoint. Also, you can stay informed of Sherlock Center Work Incentive Information events through our webpage. And we do encourage you to join the Sherlock Center's mailing list. To access information from the Sherlock Center, you can go to www.sherlockcenter.org. Also, as part of the handout, there are some disclosures that you need to be aware of. And so there are 2 pages of disclosures that that are important for you to understand. There's always small print when it comes to financial programs. So that concludes today's session on ABLE accounts. We hope your general questions were addressed, and we really encourage you to contact the Rhode Island ABLE office so that you are able to answer your questions. And please go to the ABLE account website, ri.savewithable.com, to get more information and to open your account. Thank you for joining us, and thanks, Chris, for sharing such valuable information.